President, I would ask unanimous consent to have an additional 10 minutes.
Without objection.
Thank you. Mr. President, we are soon to be voting on the situation with the rail industry, which is an enormously important issue, not only for the 125,000 rail workers involved, but for the entire country, because rail plays an enormous role in transporting very, very basic and important goods that all of us depend upon. It becomes a health issue, and et cetera, et cetera. But I want to take a half a moment to put this rail issue into a broader context and then get back to the rail situation. And that is what polls are telling us, and what I think each and every member of the Senate sees and hears from his or her constituents, is people in this country are increasingly disgusted with the kind of selfishness and corporate greed that we are seeing. Now, we don't talk about it much, and the media doesn't talk about it much, but there is more income and wealth inequality in America today than we have seen in at least 100 years. And the gap between the very, very rich and the middle class and everybody else is growing wider and wider. And today, in the midst of this inflationary period, when so many of our workers are struggling to put food on the table, when they are falling behind economically, the billionaire class has literally never had it so good. These guys don't know what to do with their money. They don't know how many mansions they can own, how many islands they can have. Some of them are building spaceships to take them to Mars. They don't know what to do with their many billions of dollars. And yet, as we speak, 85 million Americans can't afford health insurance. 60,000 a year die because they don't get to a doctor on time. 45 million people dealing with student debt. Families can't afford child care for their kids. We have 600,000 people who are homeless in America, including people a few blocks away from the United States Capitol. Rich are getting much richer. Middle class continues to shrink. And if you want to talk about the excesses of corporate greed, then you got to talk about the rail industry and what's going on here right now. Now, everybody understands that businesses sometimes have trouble. They lose money. They're in trouble. They go to their workers, hey, things are tough. We all got to cut back. We understand that. That is not the case today with the rail industry. For the rail industry, business has never been better. Record-breaking profits. This year alone, for the first 3 quarters, their profits are up by over $21 billion. They have so much money that they are able to give over $25 billion in stock buybacks and in dividends. That's what's going on with the rail industry. The CEOs, one of the CEOs in the rail industry makes $20 million a year. Another guy makes $14 million a year. They are doing phenomenally well. But what's also going on in the rail industry, that over the last 6 years, they have cut back on their workforce by 30%, which means that workers in the rail industry are asked to do more with less support. So for 3.5 years, there have been negotiations between the industry and the 12 rail unions. And the end result of this is that the workers received a 24% increase in their wages. Sounds like a lot of money. That's for a 5-year period. They have not received a pay increase in the last 3 years. And if you average it out, that pay increase is less than inflation today. So it's not a great wage increase. It's not terrible, but it is not a great wage increase. So I've heard talk about health care. Now, they won on health care. They didn't win on health care. What the industry unbelievably wanted to do, despite record-breaking profits, is ask workers to pay more for the health insurance. That was beaten back, so they remain at a status quo. Not a victory, but not a defeat. But most egregiously, if you talk to the workers as I have, what is their issue? It's not wages. It's not benefits. Their issue is paid sick leave. They are one of the few industries in America today that have zero sick paid leave. Unbelievably, if a worker today on the rail industry gets sick, that worker gets a mark for missing work and can, and in some cases, will be fired. Can you imagine that? Here in Congress, when we all, conservatives, progressives, we have staff, all of our staff, people get sick. Of course they take time off. You don't fire them, you don't give them marks, you don't punish them because they get sick. This is America, 2022. You don't treat people, especially people in the rail industry, who are doing dangerous, difficult work. Now, I have to be honest. I know that the Secretary of Labor and the Secretary of Transportation have worked really hard on this issue. But I need to hear from them the willingness, which I think there will be, to demand that the industry do what has to be done, and that is to provide paid sick leave for their workers. So, Mr. President, I will have an amendment. I assume that's coming up in a few moments. This is not a radical idea. It's a very conservative idea. And it says if you work in the rail industry, you will get 7 paid sick days. And I would hope that we would have strong support and the 60 votes that we need to pass this very, very important amendment that is wanted by every one of the rail unions, and I think is overwhelmingly supported by the American people. And with that,
Ask consent to yield all time back and ask for the yeas and nays.
yield all time back and ask for the yeas and nays.
Without objection. Is there a sufficient second? There appears to be. The clerk will call the roll.
Ms. Baldwin, Mr. Barraza.